ready? Okay, I'd like to welcome you all to Stretford High School here in Manchester and those watching online to the England Rugby League Parents Workshop. Over the next couple of hours we're going to discuss a lot of the needs and role that parents can have to support their young players. My name's Tony Fretwell. I'm the National Player Development Manager for the Rugby Football League. We are going to cover the performance parent, the role of the parent to a child who is aiming for high quality performance within the sport. We're going to discuss the player pathway. We're going to have a look at the safeguarding, and all that's going to lead into introducing to you the online parents handbook that will be coming out in April. And then we'll take some questions. The key role of tonight is, if we look at this diagram here, we have the coach and the club, the child and the parent, guardian or carer, and they create what is essentially a critical triangle. Where we get the optimum productivity is where those overlap and they are working in synergy and they are combining for the best needs of the young person. I'm just going to introduce to you about the player production policy and the aims and objectives of that policy. The aim is to have more skilled homegrown players. They will lead into more competitive teams. So the more players that we have that are able to perform at a high standard, the more competitive teams that we can generate. The more competitive teams we generate, the better the Super League competition is, and the better the Super League competition is, the better the high-performing international teams are, and we get a higher standard of talent development. But it's very much starting at those foundations of working with young people, with community coaches, and starting very much at those foundations to build the quality from the very grassroots of the game all the way through to the senior England side. When we look at the product, what do we want to achieve from the player development policy and the pathway? Faster, stronger, more powerful players for longer, technically and tactically proficient players, committed, cohesive and coherent, players who fulfill potential, self-determining players, the 24/7 athlete, an unquestionable work ethic, highly confident and adaptive to all changes. Now that's very much what the perfect player would look like. The perfect player probably doesn't exist, but in different ways, players from a very young age can aim to work on those different components. And that's very much what we want to look at tonight, and the way that parents can support those players in doing that. I want to introduce to you Dr. David Grechich, who's the chair of UCLan Sport. He's going to deliver most of the workshop tonight, and I'll hand over to David now. Thank you.
Work as best as possible for the young people so they've got the best chance of success. Seeing if you... Oh, that's right. What we're hoping to do today for you is just run through a couple of things, hopefully that you understand, and I'm sure you do, you've probably been ex-players yourself, have been involved in the game, about what it takes to develop a young player into being an elite athlete. It's looking about how we offer support as parents, but it's not just the role of the parent, the people watching at home, coaches, friends, family, brothers, sisters, PE teachers. Everybody needs to be involved in helping develop these elite young athletes. Running through, let's look at this relationship. It's three-way, the triad. You've got yourselves, the parents and the player, but also the coach. And how do you interact? And how does that work for the best to give your son, or daughter in rugby league circles as well, the best chance of getting as far as they want to in the game? Some of them, their aspirations will be professional contracts. Other ones may want to develop as far as they can and then decide they want to go into coaching or other areas. But how can we work the coaches, the parents and the players to get them where they want to be? And finally, it's about agreeing. And back at the clubs, or with the young people there themselves, it's about discussing exactly who does what, being clear, being certain, communicating between the coach, the player and the parents, so that you all know whose role it is to do certain things and to make the best possible partnership, because that's what it is. Developing young players is a partnership. Parents, you can't do it on your own, the coaches can't do it on their own, and the young people need to buy into it as well. So it's very important that they're not getting mixed messages and you're helping each other. So just to start off, again, for any of the players that watch this, Arnold Schwarzenegger, a different generation, you know, the best of his generation, he has certain rules, certain ideas that will help you be successful. And it's quite poignant. If you listen to the words and try and think about in a rugby league context, when he's telling, you know, what he did and what you need to do, how you link that to your lifestyle and your training.
Of course, people ask me all the time. They say to me, what is the secret to success? The first rule is trust yourself. But what is most important is that you have to dig deep down and ask yourselves, who do you want to be? Not what, but who. And I'm talking about not what your parents and teachers want you to be, but you. I'm talking about figuring out for yourselves what makes you happy, no matter how crazy it may sound to the people. So rule number one is, of course, trust yourself no matter what anyone else thinks. And of course, rule number two is break the rules. We have so many rules in life about everything. I say break the rules, not the law, but break the rules. It is impossible to be a maverick or a true original if you're too well behaved and don't want to break the rules. You have to think outside the box. That's what I believe. After all, what is the point of being on this earth if all you want to do is be liked by everyone and avoid trouble? The only way that I ever got any place was by breaking some of the rules. Which of course brings me to rule number three. Don't be afraid to fail. Anything I've ever attempted, I was always willing to fail. You can't always win, but don't be afraid of making decisions. You can't be paralyzed by fear of failure, or you would never push yourself. You keep pushing because you believe in yourself and in your vision. And you know that it is the right thing to do, and success will come. So don't be afraid to fail. Which brings me to rule number four, which is don't listen to the naysayers. I mean, how many times have you heard that you can't do this, and you can't do that, and it has never been done before? As a matter of fact, I love it when someone says that no one has ever done this before, because then when I do it, that means that I'm the first one that has done it. So pay no attention to the people that say it can't be done. I always listen to myself and said, yes, you can. And that brings me to rule number five, which is the most important rule of all. Work your butt off. Now, I've always believed leaving no stone unturned. Muhammad Ali, one of my great heroes, had a great line in the 70s when he was asked, how many sit-ups do you do? He said, I don't count my sit-ups. I only start counting when it starts hurting. When I feel pain, that's when I start counting, because that's when it really counts. That's what makes you a champion. That's the way it is with everything. No pain, no gain. But let me tell you, it is important to have fun in life, of course, but when you're out there partying, horsing around, someone out there at the same time is working hard. Someone is getting smarter and someone is winning. Just remember that. But if you want to win, there's absolutely no way around hard work. None of my rules, by the way, of success will work unless you do. I've always figured out that there's 24 hours a day. You sleep 6 hours. You have 18 hours left. I know there's some of you out there now and says, well, wait a minute, I sleep 8 hours or 9 hours. Well, then just sleep faster, I would recommend. Just remember, you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in the pocket. And that takes me to rule number 6, which is a very important rule. It's about giving back. Whatever path that you take in your lives, you must always find time to give something back. Something back to your community, give something back to your state or to your country. Let me tell you something, reaching out and helping people will bring you more satisfaction than anything else you've ever done. Remember those 6 rules. Trust yourself, break some rules, don't be afraid to fail, ignore the naysayers, work like hell, and give something back.
So what I'm going to go on is a lot of the research and a lot of the examples, that shows how to develop young people. Those 6 rules from Arnie are quite crucial. Feel of failure, all the different elements, working really hard, trusting in yourself, self-belief, mental toughness, all these types of things. Arnie probably sums it up in 6 simple rules about what we're going to try and develop in our young players. So the context of this talk is really looking at talent. All our youngsters have been spotted, they're part of the academies, they want to play, they see themselves, or people have said that they're very, very talented, but there is a talent myth and there's some dangers about being called talented. Quite often they've been very successful at a young age, but how does that transfer into being adults and getting those professional contracts and having a lifelong experience of rugby league and positive experiences? The bumpy path to the top, life isn't smooth. Just because they're doing very well now, they may not, progress in a straightforward rate, and we need to be able to help them as parents and spot when some of those speed bumps and those bumps will happen. And finally, there's the RFL Players Handbook to give help and support and guidance, for the parents and for the players themselves. So that's really the context. What I'd like you to do, those of you here and sat at home, is if you can think about, when we think about talented people, talented players, quite often we use certain words. And what I'd like you to do when you look at the next screen, and again with your groups at the club, try and rank order them. Prioritise what for you think is the most important characteristic that sets your son or your daughter out for being talented. Then number 2, then number 3, number 4, right the way down to number 13. For time constraints, we're just going to ask the people here just 1, 2 and 3. So what we've got to choose from, when we talk about talented people, we might say, wow, they never give up. They persevere, what great perseverance they've got. We might say, they bounce back, they're resilient, mental toughness, bounce back ability. They're hardworking, they're dedicated. They're analytical, they look at the game statistics, the number of tackles they've made, etc. They review, they watch video clips of themselves. They're enthusiastic, they just love rugby league, they love training, they love everything about it, they love watching it. The next one, technical, they've got great skills, they can pass off both hands, 7 metres, 9 metres, 11 metres, etc. They're great at tackling, all the different techniques, they're good at kicking, they've got awareness, etc. Tactical, spatial awareness, they see gaps faster than other people, they see space, they move into space, fantastic at dodging and moving. They've got great strength and conditioning, they're fantastic speed, flexibility, balance. Again, this mental toughness, they deal with pressure, big game mentality. Is it game sense? They understand what's going on, they see things almost before the other players, they spot opportunities and they spot gaps. They're creative, they do something a bit different, like Arnie said, break the rules. They do something innovative, they experiment, they try different things. Or down at the bottom, they just think, and on the way home, during the week, they're constantly thinking about how they played, what they need to do better, what they did good, what they did bad, how they can improve. So these are some common things we think about talented people. And what I'd like you to do is just try and decide 1, 2 and 3, first of all, if you do this at home, 1 to 13, what you think are the most important attributes, the most important traits for a talented athlete. Just have a quick chat with the people you sat with or the people at home. Any ideas? A gentleman in the middle, just to shout out.
I would say technical, physical and resilient.
Technical, physical, resilient. Why in that order?
The more technical they are, the better you can see the game, I think.
Technique from being able to pass a certain way, being able to tackle a certain way, being able to kick a certain way, which is an interesting conversation. And depending, who you talk to, some parents always think that. And especially if it's something, because it's something you can control. As a parent, you can help them with the skills. You can help them in the garden or on the park, and you can help them develop those things. So there probably isn't a wrong answer, but some of the research that I'll go into would probably put them in a slightly different order for things that maybe as parents we don't help them with. And with my son and daughter, maybe I've neglected because I've tried to work on technique. Maybe I could be doing other things and giving them other experiences. The perseverance, is that something you think as parents you can help your children with? Or do you think they've got that naturally or they don't have it?
Yeah, you would help them as a parent, because kids tend to drift, don't they? Sometimes you just need to
So again, you're giving them support, and that's one of the tasks later. You know, what exactly support should you give as a parent, and what can you give? Moving on, when we think about talent, quite often it's what you've done as a youngster. You know, what they talked about at school, what you see on television, what they write in the newspapers. Quite often our frame of reference, or you know, what we think is acceptable, is almost manipulated by other things. So if we look at talent, you know, think about, you know, what we think of as being talented rugby league players. And we could go through all the English players over the last 5 years, the last 10 years. They've moved into coaching positions now, and management. You know, over in the world, we've got Sean Johnson, that, you know, a lot of the rugby league coaches would say, you know, with the Tompkins and everybody else, the Burgess, that, you know, he may have talent. And if you don't mind just playing that video, and just watch this and see what you think. Is this somebody you would think is talented?
Why do you love the game? And they ask you, why do you love the game? This is one of the reasons you love the game. The superstars that you come across from time to time.
Get below, now with Johnson, the captain sets them along, Johnson straightens up, inside the 10, Sean Johnson, he's back another, links up with Johnson, Johnson's away, he is home, Sean Johnson, bonus zone try, a bit all that sharp from the Warriors, Johnson though can correct it, look at the speed, Sean Johnson has got it!
Mateo, nice ball to Johnson, Sean Johnson, he's on the chance, he's got
Close to Johnson, he'll take on the fullback, he sprints away from Selman now to chase, yes he's away, Johnson just too much speed, Sam Burgess is put on his backside by Johnson, can you believe it?
Lovely hands, again back to Johnson, he steps with his speed, the way he just grips it behind him, falls a tenner for Sean Johnson, that is about as good as it gets.
Little one Johnson with speed, here he goes, Johnson will take him on, look at it, Sean Johnson.
And again, if we look at other players, you know, looking more Australia, Greg Inglis, Cooper Cronk, Burgess brothers, all 4 of them. We've seen these images, we see them on TV, adverts, everything else that they do. Australia, World Cup. So we almost have got a picture of what we need to do for our young people if they're going to be successful, because of all these things that we see all the time. And whoever the Super League champions are year on year, you know, which are the best academies, what are they doing with our young people? But again, that's only part of the picture. That's why this is about the talent myth. When we think about talent, they talk about talent as being an iceberg. And when we see how fast they are, how strong they are, you know, where they see the space, how they dodge, the handoff, the tackle, the commitment, we are only seeing the very top of that iceberg. And yet below it, there's masses of things that we've never seen in a young person's development. We've not seen in the Burgess brothers, in the Tompkins, and everything else, what have they done in the evenings, in the mornings, early, late? How have they thought about the game? What have the parents done for them? What was the PE teacher doing for them? What were the local community club doing for them? There's masses of things that we just don't see. But we see what's on television, and we tend to focus on that, and some of us try to copy that. And this is what can happen when parents then, you know, quite rightly, because that's all they've seen, when they try and copy that. we left that to run, we may as well just put the next Sean Johnson on the page, because the parents have, looked at their little boy, the fend, the tackle, the dodge, the speed, the acceleration. They've trained him to be what their role model is, what they've seen. In golf, you see this, and in a lot of other sports, the next Tiger Woods. And if you search YouTube and you see all these parents, and think about the time and the effort, putting that to music, taking all those video clips, spending hours and hours making that montage, because the parents love that little kid. But what could be the dangers of doing that type of thing? What can you think of any? Pressure, fantastic. Burnout, brilliant, because we're almost treating that youngster, he's 6, like an adult, and putting all those expectations on that child. You are the next Sean Johnson, you're going to do this. And even worse, you're going to get us, a contract. We're going to get a new house out of this. We're going to be famous. And you can see it. So what do you think the messages are then behind those video clips? And I'm going to show some more in a moment about talent. Anything springs to mind? No. Maybe don't believe exactly what we see. Maybe dig down below the iceberg and find out what's been going on. As parents, if we want to give them the best chance, we need to try and find out as much as possible, don't we, to help our sons and daughters. So now there's a couple more video clips, and there's a lot of video clips here so that people at home can watch them. And I put video clips in there that are all accessible on YouTube. They're all public, so your children can watch them, because hopefully they'll try and listen to the messages and look at the messages as well. So looking at this one, if you can just try and think what this message might be. Michael Jordan, possibly the best ever basketball player that's lived.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
Okay, so I think you mentioned it already on your third trait. So you mentioned perseverance. So what do you think for the people watching back home and the young people? What is that video clip trying to tell them, do you think? Keep going. Anything else? Fantastic. And as a parent, that's possibly the best gift you can give your son or daughter, not being, afraid, oh, my dad's watching, my mum's watching, I don't want to try that, they might not be happy with me. So giving them the gift of failure, or try, they want to win, they want to try their best, but if they fail, they know that it doesn't matter. It's a learning opportunity. So anything about mental toughness as well there? Think about the courage it takes if he's missed that many shots, to say, yeah, I'll put my hand up, I'll take the next one, I'll take the drop goal. Last minute, give it to me. So on the next one, again, hopefully another little message, a bit closer to home.
In the changing rooms before a game, I visualise how I'm going to play. I have nightmares about letting the team down. The thought terrifies me. But I know, as long as I give everything, I'll have no regrets. Around where I grew up, the game's part of our culture. During an under-16s final, I knew rugby would always be part of my life. We were in extra time and pinned back. We finally managed to get the ball. I broke through a tackle and ran 70 metres to score the winning try. The feeling is just indescribable. It's something I've been chasing ever since. When I'm playing, I forget about everything else. All that matters is the game and my team. Never get dejected, just work and keep on improving. I've had plenty of stitches in my head, a broken nose more times than I can count. There's multiple shoulder injuries, a chipped sternum, a tore up ductor, and countless more injuries. But it's all worth it, for the game.
So again, try not to focus on the injuries that he had, But there's some words that he used and some things that he focused on. Hopefully is the message for your sons and daughters as well. Can you think what hopefully that message is that they would take from that?
Keep going.
Keep going, so the trying, the perseverance. Anything else?
Sacrifices.
Love of the game, wasn't it? The sacrifices, the injuries and everything else that he's put into it. Anything else come to mind? What struck me is he talks about love of the game, community, team, you know, where he grew up. You know, that love of the game, that passion for the game, and being part of your community and representing your community, how important that is for young people as well. So it's not just an ego about them, it's about everybody, isn't it? And trying to instill that in youngsters. Also about working hard and learning. If you go back to those traits about reviewing and developing and trying to get better and better and better, sometimes the talent myth is you tell a young child they are talented, they're good. So they think, well, I don't need to try any harder. Don't need to continue working. I don't need to keep getting better. I'm amazing. I'm good. I'm an academy. I'm better than anybody in my school. I'm better than my brothers and sisters. Right, but that idea of just keep working, constantly keep trying to get better and better. And the final one for this little section, if you don't mind just watching this, this is a famous American preacher. It gets put, these words get put to all sorts of different sports, these pictures and messages, and a lot of presenters use this. If you try to listen to the story, the words, if you've not heard it before, whilst the pictures are going on as well. Thanks.
There was a young man who, you know, he wanted to make a lot of money, and so he went to this guru, right? And he told the guru, you know, I want to be on the same level you're on. And so the guru said, if you want to be on the same level I'm on, I'll meet you tomorrow at the beach. So the young man got there at 4 a.m. He all ready to rock and roll, got on the suit, should have wore shorts. The old man grabs his hand and said, how bad do you want to be successful? He said, real bad. He said, walk on out in the water. So he walks out into the water. Watch this. When he walks out into the water, it goes waist deep. So he's like, this guy crazy. Adrian, like, I want to make money. He got me out here swimming. I didn't ask to be a lifeguard. I want to make money. He got me in. So he said, come out a little further, walked out a little further. Then he had it right around this area, the shoulder area. So this old man crazy. He's making money, but he crazy. He said, come on out a little further. He came out a little further. It was right at his mouth. My man, like, I'm about to go back in here. This guy is mine. So the old man said, I thought you said you wanted to be successful. He said, I do. He said, walk a little further. He came, dropped his head in, held him down, hold him down. My man getting scratching, holding him down. He had him held down. Just before my man was about to pass out, he raised him up. He said, I got a question for you. He told the guy, he said, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. I don't know how many of y'all got asthma in here today, but if you ever had an asthma attack before, you short of breath, SOB, shortness of breath, you wheezing. The only thing you're trying to do is get some air. You don't care about no basketball game. You don't care what's on TV. You don't care about nobody calling you. You don't care about a party. The only thing you care about when you're trying to breathe is to get some fresh air. That's it. And when you get to the point where all you want to do is be successful as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. And I'm here to tell you, number one, that most of you say you want to be successful, but you don't want it bad. You just kind of want it. You don't want it badder than you want to party. You don't want it as much as you want to be cool. Most of you don't want success as much as you want to sleep. Some of you love sleep more than you love success. And I'm here to tell you today, if you're going to be successful, you gotta be willing to give up sleep. You gotta be willing to work out for 3 hours of sleep, 2 hours. If you really want to be successful, some days you're gonna have to stay up 3 days in a row. Because if you go to sleep, you might miss the opportunity to be successful. That's how bad you gotta want it. You gotta go days without, listen to me, you gotta want to be successful so bad that you forget to eat. Beyonce said once she was on the set doing her thing, 3 days had gone by, she forgot she didn't eat. Because she was engaged. I never forget when 50 Cent was doing this movie, I did a little research on 50, and 50 said that when he wasn't doing the movie, he was doing the soundtrack. And they said, when do you sleep, 50? Sleep. He said, sleep. Sleep is for those people who are broke. I don't sleep. So I got an opportunity to make a dream become a reality. Don't cry to quit. You already in pain, you already hurt. Get a reward from it. Don't go to sleep until you succeed. Listen to me. I'm here to tell you today that you can come here, you can jump up, you can do flips, you can be excited when we give away money, but listen to me, you will never be successful until I don't have to give you a dime to do what you do. You won't be successful until you say, I don't need that money, because I got it in here.
Again, if you listen to the words, when you want to be successful more than what you want to breathe. And if you look about all the effort he put in there from the injury, and the message is there for the young people is obviously, the time and the effort that he spent training. Going back to Arnie's message, if you're not working, somebody else will. Because somebody will want it more than you. Somebody will be working hard, and it's about working your butt off, working like hell. That is that message, that determination for the young people as well. So if we consider those 13 talent traits again, and looking at performers, looking what they've gone through, looking at the training that they do, the technical thing that most people pick, just like the gentleman there, the technical stuff we can help them with. It's pretty straightforward. We can help people pass, we can help them learn to kick, we can help them learn to tackle, learn to fend, etc. The other bits, that is really difficult to help them with. That determination, that desire, that work ethic, being part of the community, wanting to help other people as well. So that now, when we think about those talent traits, maybe being, big, being fast, being strong, being skillful. Maybe again, we can get them in the gym, we can build them up, we can work on speed training. But it's the other bits as parents that you can do that maybe the coaches can't do. Now, so it's all linked with evidence, and evidence comes from lots of sports, from mostly elite performers, elite athletes, Olympic champions, people that have worked at that level. And one of the original studies with Gulrick and Partington looked at hundreds and hundreds of youngsters that had played at elite international level or junior world championships, Olympic level, junior Olympics, and then to see whether they continued, did they get senior success? And unfortunately, all that screen means is that if they started early and they specialised in one particular sport, unless it was swimming or gymnastics because of the age and the size, etc., it meant that when they became adults and senior, they didn't follow that through. Whereas down at the bottom, the ones who maybe didn't train as intensely, that played 3 or 4 different sports, that became more whole-rounded individuals, they may not have been as successful as juniors, but they were the ones that progressed and were really successful as adults. And sometimes we think you've got to be world champion. How many junior world champions make it to being senior world champions? Very, very few. And actually, people that played international sport as junior, less than a third actually make it to international as a senior level. Burnout, just what the gentleman said there, total burned out. Also, the progress, the path, and again, this is typical. If we got from 6, 7-year-olds over on the left-hand side, we're starting off, we go to secondary school, start playing a little bit more sport, somebody spots us, we get talent scouted, we get put into an academy, into a squad, we do fantastically well, we're developing, we're becoming faster, stronger, more skillful, we're bursting through tackles, we're making more yards. All of a sudden, people catch us up size-wise. We're no longer bigger, stronger, faster, so we have a dip again. Because we've maybe got good support networks, we try and develop different types of skills so that they, are successful again, and they come up again. They get, make it into the first team. They get dropped again. They drop down from an international squad. They make it back up again. Until right the way through, they either qualify or they don't qualify for big World Cups and major championships. And that is a typical talent pathway of most elite athletes. Very few of them, as I've mentioned, have been world champion at junior and have gone right the way through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right the way through being 20, and it's been smooth. It's the bumpy path of talent development. And again, as a parent, knowing when it's going to come, because it could be to do with hormones, could be things that are happening at school, in life, where it's going to come and how you can actually help them, and how you can even have a conversation with your son or daughter, you know, to make them aware that it's about to happen. That's really tricky. But there's a lot of help out there. My Era, the X-Files, The Truth Is Out There, Mystery, it's probably all hidden away in, you know, Lot 51 in the middle of nowhere. But it's not, there's an awful lot of help, and this is what Rugby League are trying to do for all of us, for the coaches, the players and the parents. There was a model from Bailey and Hamilton that talked about, let's look at all the different stages that young people have to go through. At a young age, we want them to enjoy and just love sport, because that'll be the love of Rugby League, the love of the game. Fundamental movement skills, moving in different directions, hopping, jumping, catching, throwing, etc. Playing as many different sports, as many different activities as possible. As they get older, you may not see quite as clearly on the screen, but learning to train, learning to compete, learning to win. But there's different stages when we need to try and get this across to the youngsters. If it's a 6-year-old learning to win at all costs, that mentality, being devastated if they don't win, feeling bad about themselves if they don't win, that doesn't fit into this long-term model. Because yeah, you want your children to be successful now, but I'm sure you'd rather them to be successful at 18, 19, 20 and be exactly where they want to be. So this is one model that's been adopted by lots of sports. It's also based on the other concept that we can't just think physically as they develop and as they train, but there's actually 3 worlds that are going on in the young person's life. They're growing, as we can see, the biological, the physical health or the injured, etc. There's the psychological side of things, the self-esteem, the self-confidence, their intelligence. But look at the important bit where you are. You know, family, school, peers, friends, how that all interacts with you. And it comes together to develop the mental health and some of the difficulties that we have for youngsters, where they maybe go off the rails. And down at the bottom, trauma. We have a saying, talent by trauma. Most of the elite athletes have had a really bad experience, and they've developed that mental toughness and that resilience that's got them through that life circumstance, so then they can put sport in a different context. What we also need is, with you saying about you know, the strength and speed and agility, we need those fundamental movement skills, but we need them not to just be able to run in a rugby line. We need them to be able to move the body in all different directions. If they keep doing the same thing again and again and again, they're going to get more injuries. So if you can have functional variability, getting them doing many, many different types of activities, it'll take stress off their body, it'll help them recover, and then they'll be even better at the rugby and the skills that they want to develop. And as it says there, also, if they can only do rugby and nothing else, then what about if they get asked to do other things? They might say, well, no, because you know, they won't give it a go. Whereas if at a young age you can get them just trying as many different things as possible, it gives them a positive attitude, and again, in the long term, it'll help the rugby league as well. Wellerman Lavely said, look, with any young person, let's look how old they are. They've got a hell of a lot of things going on in their lives. And sometimes, you know, we just think as coaches, the people who are watching, about the athletic level, grassroots game, community game, getting them involved at the beginning, then about developing them, getting them into an academy. Then we're looking at, you know, can they get a contract? Are they playing professional? You know, and then what are they going to do as vets? Are they going to continue, or are they going to be lost to the game? But we need to be looking at the other things as well. Childhood, puberty, maturation, how they grow, all about the hormones, what's going on in the mind as well as adolescence. If you link that as well with what's going on with their relationship with you as parents, with brothers, sisters, with the friendship groups, what the friends like doing, what they don't like doing, and again, you're trying to manage that. We've also then go on to how they interact with the coach as well. So there's the parent, the coach, and yourselves, but also the friends, what they're saying about it. Then, as they get older, you've got to think about boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, what type of influence they'll have, running right the way through as when they've got young children. But look at the bottom one as well, academic vocational. The transition, primary to secondary school, can be traumatic. When they have to decide on what are the GCSEs, you know, when they're going into, you know, year 9, going into year 10 again, can be very traumatic what's happening at school, getting moved around groups, or they set it into ability groups, when they leave secondary school and going to work or going to college. And what Wellerman says is we need as parents to manage and be aware the 6 months, the year coming up to that, and actually try and give the students that preparation and get the youngsters as athletes that preparation as well with everything that they do. Professor Collins, Dave Collins, says, let's just think about it simple, 5 rings, just like the Olympic flag. You know, yes, quite often we always focus on the middle one, technical, tactical skills. That's the big thing. And in a lot of programs, that's the biggest circle, the biggest ring. But we need to think about the psycho-behavioural, the emotion, the confidence, the self-esteem. What do I think about myself? Can I plan? Can I cope? Can I bounce back? Do I give up? Do I try hard? Physical conditioning, yes, very important as well, especially in our sport. But lifestyle and support. You know, are they sleeping enough? You know, if we're looking at teenagers, how many get between 10 and 14 hours of sleep? That's what they need. That's what their body needs to grow, and yet we give them less and less and less. And Arnie says sleep faster. Right? But they do need that to develop their bodies, and we need to be aware of that. Movement skills, fundamental movement skills, so they're less likely to get injured. Different movement patterns and always doing the same thing. And it's about the lifestyle and support, how happy they are. You know, we work with a lot of elite athletes, and sometimes the coaches get said, what did you work on? You know, did you change this? Did you change that? What did your tactics? What did you do? You know, I went and met him the night before and I had dinner with him. You know, we had a nice evening. He was happy. They were happy. They had good preparation for the game. Everyone was happy. They won. They played well. But sometimes that lifestyle bit, we probably don't pay enough attention to, exactly how the children are feeling. So, if as parents and the coaches as well, we're going to equip people for success, success, success. As it says here, a quote, experience is not what happens to a man, it's what he does with it when it happens. The 2 people at the top, Gareth Hock, possibly one of the world's greatest forwards, unemployed. Some would say unemployable. You know, how does that happen with somebody with that amount of talent? Is it the life choices he's made? He's had support, but did he have all the other skills? He was big and strong and he had the technical skills. Did he have everything else underneath the iceberg to allow him to cope and maybe stop him making some of the decisions that he's made? Over on the right-hand side with Flower, we've got somebody else that's going through a very similar traumatic experience. Will he bounce back? Will he learn? Will he develop? Will he work hard again? Will he have that love of the game? He'll still get the same level of support, but interestingly might be what are their wives, girlfriends, friends, family, parents, brothers, sisters doing and helping them as well. So what we need to do as parents is try and teach youngsters these performance skills that will help them develop and help them get better. And this is an interesting saying because quite often we always think on the technical or the physical, but here the degree to which talent can be developed depends on the metacognitive, in other words the thinking part, the thinking skills that support autonomy of learning. That means taking control yourself, and you determining your own future. This includes encouraging curiosity, persistence, confidence, as well as the efficient use of learning strategies, planning, monitoring and evaluation. That's the only academic quote in there, but I think it sums it up what we want young people to do. We can't force them to do things. We want them to be responsible themselves, but we don't just want them to be gym monkeys or anything else who are just constantly working on the skills and nothing else. We want them to try and work and develop everything. Planning, monitoring, evaluation, self-assessment, how did they do? What do they need to work on? Not just having you getting the kit ready, ferrying them backwards and forwards like taxi drivers all the time. As they get older, making their own decisions, getting all the kit ready themselves, getting the boots prepared, making sure they've got the mouth guards, everything else that they need. And there's a lot of science that says there are psychological characteristics of developing excellence, PCDEs. And that's been shown in business, in leadership, in management, in the military decision making under a hell of a lot of pressure and stress, but also in elite sport. And these things are obvious when we look at them like this. Effective and controllable imagery. I'm under pressure, I need to focus on what I need to do. Can I block things out? Have I got a plan? Do I know what I'm going to do, during the match? Will that help me see the spaces? Can I imagine myself running and scoring a try? Focus and distraction control. When the coach, other parents, other players, spectators are shouting things at them from the crowd. Can they cope with that? Have they got the coping strategies? Realistic performance assessment. You know, none of us want the big-headed kids, but none of us want the kids who are totally depressed. They've played well, but they think they've done terrible. We want them to understand the good bits that they've done, the bad bits they've done, how they can get better, what they need to do to get better. Role clarity and commitment. If we know as parents, what are we going to do? The player knows, what do I need to take responsibility of? And we all know what the coach is going to do. And the coach knows what you're going to do and what the player's going to do. And you know what the coach is going to do. Makes life a whole lot easier. But sometimes we don't have that conversation and we don't know. We think we know, but maybe we just presume things. Planning and organisation, goal setting, self-reinforcement about where they want to get to. And there's a slide towards the end, you know, for people to look at, but it can't be because the coach thinks I'm good, so I'm going to do this. My mum and dad want me to do this, so I'm going to do it. It's got to be, I love this, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to set my goal to be as good as I possibly can be. Quality practice, not just going through the motions, turning up, but you know, quality, really deliberate practice. And there's been an awful lot of research saying, you know, 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, working hard, doing all sorts of different things will give you a really good start on developing excellence. Resilience, that mental toughness, bounce back ability. Creating and using supportive networks. This is a crucial one. Knowing where they can get sports science support from, knowing that they might be vulnerable, you know, that they might be worried about things, that they might be upset, that they might be under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and knowing who they can go and talk to, knowing what they can talk to you about and that you're there to help them, knowing what they can talk to the coach about. And that is difficult, especially with the age of your children. And we need to be mindful, you know, it's one heck of a sport that we all love, but there's a lot of stress that's involved. And if we don't do something about it to prepare our youngsters for when they're 18 and hopefully when they get into the professional game, there are a lot of dangers. Now I think rugby league's done fantastic with the state of mind, both here and in many other countries around the world. But this is just a little video to remind again, it might be something that you show your children as well, this video, about this is what we need to prepare you for. So when we're asking you to consider these other concepts, this is the reason why.
Kids have dreams, and there's not many kids that get a chance to fulfill their dreams.
Ever since I can remember, that's all I've ever wanted to do is play rugby league.
The relationships and camaraderie with your teammates, you feel like you're part of something special.
It's like having 26 brothers around you at all times.
Every rugby league player takes field striving to be at the best.
You've got to perform well week in, week out.
Along with that comes a lot of pressure. It's about how you handle that on and off the field.
It's pretty intense. It's intense being a Super League player. It consumes you really, your full life.
Every little mistake that you make, there's 10, 15, 20,000 people watching you make that mistake.
The size of that, the magnitude of that can hit you pretty hard at times.
Just last week I had not the best of games, and I just felt absolutely terrible.
You're depressed, you're upset, you're angry, you're hurt, so you don't sleep.
It's impossible to sleep after you've played. You just tend to relive each play that you did wrong, you know, every tackle, every kick, every pass.
People in the town would class you a failure on the basis of 1 week's game.
I think driving home on a Friday night sometimes certainly sets the tone for the weekend, and it can be a bit of a lonely place at times.
It's hard to be upset and despondent and then all of a sudden be happy in your personal life, so it definitely does spill over, and my wife probably feels the brunt of it more than anyone else.
They're dealing with a lot of emotion too, and we give them like a lot of hard time too.
I think if you've got troubles at home, they'll show in the work that you're doing. I think it's the same in any job really.
I had some family troubles leading into a big game once, and those family troubles sort of followed me. I knew then that my head wasn't in the game.
It's the same with people that go to work. They'll have their own problems at home, and everyone's got problems.
Even though people see the highs of rugby, the lifting the trophies, the smiles, the scoring the tries, the tapping each other on the back, there's also kind of a lonely place in rugby. You can be injured for a long stretch of time.
I had an operation on my spine, and they said if the operation didn't work, that my career's gone basically. I was in a tough place then for a while.
2 years ago I had quite a serious neck operation where I was led to believe that I wouldn't play again. You doubt whether you can get back from it for one, and then you got to get back into a collision sport as well.
When you are injured and you're out there and you see the team training, you just don't feel part of it.
It's a dark place when you get injured and you're out there for a long time.
We're here for not a long time really, you know, comparing that to another job, or you know, somebody maybe a plumber or a builder.
When you come to the end of the career, you realise, well, I'm mid-30s, early 30s now, and a lot of people's lives are beginning, where actually yours is ending and it needs to begin again.
You need to escape at times, and for me, having a hobby which was surfing allowed me to escape and have something else that I could cling to and look forward to.
It's a macho sport. It's played by majority of alpha male type blokes. You know, when you hurt on the field, you don't show it. You know, when you get injured, you get back up and get in the line.
So, I mean, that is the pressure environments that we're preparing these young people to move into. Now, hopefully, by putting the parental packages together, things you can share with your children, hopefully your youngsters will be more prepared than some of these guys were when they make it to the top. Right? But it is all underpinned, isn't it, with what's happening in the mind. You know, the stress levels that they're under and how they cope with that. So that tends to be crucial and a wonderful area. They're going home, and it's what's happening at home with their wives. You know, it might be the conversations you've had with the children before they go and play. It might be when they come home, how you react to how they've played or what they've been up to that make a massive difference to them again.
Long time, really. You know, comparing that to another job or, you know.
Could you just flick that one on? If you just flick the the escape on the keypad, should pop it through. Thanks. Just present, yeah. So, as parents, you know, you are really that support mechanism, aren't you? All the way around the young person. And in sport, in elite sport, we talk about the scaffolding concept, that you're building all the way around the young people. And you're building, you know, this emotional support, but depending what you do, also helping the mental side of the game, helping the physical side with the food you prepare and help them with. You know, the technical, the tactical, you might talk to them about the game a lot, you might watch games with them, you might go outside and practice with them to support them and help them as well. The social side, making them well-rounded individuals, so it's not just ego that they think they're brilliant because they're rugby league players and they're better than everybody else. And the spiritual side, really the moral side, what their values are, their personal values, part of a team, it's not just about them. So you're building everything you do, you're building this scaffolding. And what you're hoping for eventually, by the time they get 16, 17, 18, is all that strength that you've developed in them is now on the inside. It's not on the outside. We don't see any of that scaffolding around them, but it's there. They've understood it, they've used all the experiences that you've helped them with, and they're much stronger individuals because of it. So it's like almost an analogy, a thought that we can think of when we look at a young athlete. How strong are they on the inside? If they don't have it, and again you might have recognised this in friends of your children or family or what it might be, if they don't have that strength on the inside, how many early promise, fantastic potential, but they collapse, they just don't make it whenever anything gets difficult? How many athletes can perform extremely, oh, I've got a hamstring injury, oh, I feel tired today, oh, I've got a bit of an ache and pain, oh, I feel sore, you know, I best not, you know, try. You might know people like that. How many, all of a sudden, they're bigger, stronger, faster than anybody else, they go boom, straight to the top. Everyone thinks they're talented. But once they've got there, they don't last for very long because they might have the physical attributes, but they don't have the mental side of the game as well. Down at the bottom, how many youngsters do you see, wow, what amazing potential, but for some reason, I don't know, there's just something not quite right, he doesn't quite have it. And the last one, exactly, they just don't quite make it. And quite often we never know why, because we think, well, they're strong, they're powerful, they can do everything they need to do in the game, but they just don't make it. So, you know, I'm a parent, you're a parent, we're at crossroads all the time. The decisions we make, because we have a duty of care for the youngsters, are massive. And we can go in any different directions. But what we would like to do, or I suggest that you try and do, and with the Rugby League, the Parents Handbook, some help and support will be in there with ideas, is say that young people need to focus on more than just one thing. If you can get them involved in lots of different activities, it'll mean they're less likely to get injured. It'll help them with the coordination, with the balance, with their agility, and some of the other aspects as well. It'll let them switch off as well and have a break so they don't get burnt out. The lessons they learn when they're young, hopefully, will mean that they develop from that junior level to that senior level success, and they become more successful. There's a lot of crossover. You know, if we have a look at the bottom, Lizzie Yarner was on television loads after the Winter Olympics, but she wasn't made in Skellington. She was a pentathlete. So all that other training she was able to use and transfer over. And again, if you watch any of the video clips with her and she talks about training, she talks about how much fun she has, how much love of the sport she has, about how she's constantly trying to get better and better and better and better. She doesn't think she's the best just because she won the gold medal. Early specialist training may damage you. So if you imagine you just focus just on one thing, you know, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, you know, you need to be doing 2 or 3 sports, the research says. You know, you might have a summer sport like rugby league and do something different in the winter. You might have a crossover and do 2 sports, but you just need that little bit of extra rather than your life just being rugby league. Because looking at those fellas, an injury and that's it. How devastating is that if that's your life? And unless it's done carefully by parents, by coaches, they take a lot of responsibility, by academies, you know, we can nurture young people or we can damage them. And that is the crossroads that we're at. So, one simple thing that we can all try and do is, if you've seen a lot of this stuff about Carol Dweck growth mindset, is we can try and grow all this mental side of the young people. And schools will do a lot of this. And it's about, you know, not label them, he's talented, he's special, he's amazing. Because what happens if they don't feel amazing? Or they don't think they're special, but they're labelled as that? What if they're not man of the match every single week because somebody says the best player in the team? All of a sudden, what could be positive turns into a negative, and they feel like they're letting people down. Praise, but we need to praise the process, not the outcome. It's not the fact that you scored a try, it's the fact that you had amazing spatial awareness, you dodged, you know, you realised you made the right decision at the right time, you solved the problem, you know, you did something, you know, you really worked really hard to get where you've got to, so you deserve that success. Not, great, you scored 5 tries, you're amazing, you're the best player on the pitch. Kid think, great, I don't need to try, I'm the best player. Build resilience, you know, make things hard work for them, you know, and then help them overcome those challenges. And then reduce this fear of failure, because failure doesn't exist. Every time they fail, it's just another opportunity to learn something, an opportunity to get better next time. Now, for adolescents, our age group of kids, let's look on the left. Carol says there's 2 different types. Fixed mindsets, and ideally for elite performers, we'd like them to have a growth mindset. So here, if we're fixed, if things get difficult, we avoid it. Oh, I've got an injury. Oh, you know, I'm not feeling great today, I best not try that. They might give up very easily because simply they've been labelled as talented, I'm talented, I'm talented, I'm talented. I don't know that. I've never done that before. I'm not going to give it a go, because what if I'm not the best? Effort, oh, there's no point. You know, I'm just a rugby league player, I just do this, and if I can't do it, I don't want to try. Criticism, you know, you might turn around to them, or the coaches say, you know what, I thought you could have done this differently, you could have done this differently. They don't want to hear it. They just blank it off. They're not willing to accept criticism. And down at the bottom, if somebody else is man of the match, lo and behold, they feel angry. You know, why did he get man of the match? I played better than him. Now that's the fixed mindset. Where we want to get, and what we want you to do, is get them over to the growth mindset, where if it becomes difficult, they embrace that challenge. They try really, really hard. They don't give up, that fortitude. You know, they work harder and harder and harder and better and better. If you criticise me, brilliant, I'm going to get better. Tell me how I can get better. Help me get better. That's a growth mindset. Down at the bottom, success of others. Wow, he did fantastic today. I'm going to try even harder and work even harder so I'm even better than him next time. Not, oh, you know, the coach likes him. He's always giving him man of the match. So, as a parent, don't focus on, you know, whether your child is talented or not. You just want them to be an individual and get better. Praising players' ability leaves them doing the same thing again and again. You know, because they think, I'll only get praise if I do it exactly the same. So you lose the creativity, you lose the innovation, you get the fear of failure. So I'll stick to what I know, and I know I can be successful at. Believe in the ability to grow and improve, develops problem solvers, have positive messages. So look at this one. in a rugby league example, we turn round and we say, wow, that was a great tackle, you're really good, you're a great tackler, you're a fantastic tackler, you're nails. Or we turn around and say, wow, that was a great tackle, you've been working really hard in training, it's really showing, it's paying off, you're getting better and better and better, you know, keep trying hard. It's the same thing that you've seen, it's a slightly different message that you've given as a parent. And what we'd like you to do with the person that's next to you is, what do you think are the differences between those two feedbacks about the same thing? And more importantly, what message do you think the player picks up when he hears those words coming from you? So if you don't mind doing that for a few seconds, please. Hi, thank you. The gentleman at the back, some great things, only heard a little bit from down here. Do you mind saying what you were talking about?
That's the best example you could ever give to anybody playing any sport, you know, doing something well with hard work paying off. You know, as I say, the top one, someone's going to get rid of that.
Also, in our team sport, all of a sudden the other kids think, well, I'm not a great tackler, I'm going to leave the tackling to him. You know, so it affects the development of the whole squad, you know, not just your son, you know, or somebody else's son or daughter. This is the last one with coaches and parents here and people watching at home. Just have a think, what do you do most of? You know, we had to talk to my children's grandparents, because typical grandparents, and this is part of the family unit as well, oh, isn't she wonderful, isn't he great at reading, you know, isn't he great at writing, oh, he's a fantastic drawer, he's brilliant at this, he's superb at that. And when he was little, that's all he heard, you know, babysitting, childcare, that's all he heard. And then when he got to 6, we'd take him places and do things, and he'd like take a step back. And I'd be looking at him going, oh, go on, Benjamin, have a go, try, you know, try. Didn't want to try. It was only when I started like looking into all this sort of stuff and like asking, you know, the grandparents, what did they do with him, what did they do? This was it. And he was so worried that he wouldn't be perfect, that he wouldn't be brilliant, he wouldn't be fantastic. He would stand back and watch, and only when he'd worked out exactly what the other kids were doing or what the game was or what the activity was, and he thought he would be good at it, did he go and have a go. So we had to, you know, obviously ask the grandparents, you know, it's brilliant that you love your grandchildren, over the moon, love spending time with you. Do you mind just, you know, maybe when you praise them slightly differently? You know, that's an amazing, you know, picture. You've worked so hard on that. You've really taken time, you know, put in lots of detail. You've used a lot of creativity. I love all the different colours that you've used. You've obviously decided what goes with what. And over a period of about 6 months, he turned round again and he started trying things and experimenting. And it didn't matter as long as he tried hard or as long as he tried something different. Now, another concept that links into this, very strange word, epistemology. All it means is what you think about learning and knowledge. And the guy there, William Perry, basically said, you know, as a parent, as a coach, and he did this as young people, as athletes, what we think about knowledge and learning, we can be over here on this side of the room, which is what he would say would be naive. In that, there is only one truth. And the coach knows everything. All I have to do is what the coach says. How does the coach know everything? He's done his RFL coaching badges. That's the only bit of knowledge about coaching we ever need to find out and know about. And I just have to listen, and it's a power relationship. As long as I do what I'm told, I will get that knowledge. That person will transmit that knowledge at me. Somehow I'll soak it up, and I'm going to be good. Right over on the other side, you know, we have sophisticated concepts. Now here, we might have coaches who are saying, right, well, this is what we do at rugby. Let's look at other sports. What do they do to make even better athletes? Constantly learning. This is our tactics we play now. Everyone plays that tactics. Let's be creative. Let's try different things. Let's try and create our own knowledge. Learning, it's not power, it's not about me telling all the time what to do, how to play. Why not give some responsibility back to the young people? You know, give them a problem, can we solve that problem? Can we be creative? Can we do something different? How are we going to be better than the other teams, more successful, more innovative? And where we are as a coach, the same thing as a parent, the same thing as a player. What we think about knowledge and then determines what we think about learning, and it determines about how we coach and how we train. And just like the growth mindsets, fixed or growth, we want players to be towards growth. With epistemology, ideally we want them to be sophisticated. Let's try something new. Let's not have a fear of failure. Let's be innovative, creative. Me as a coach, I'm going to try and find out as much as possible from other coaches, from other clubs, from other sports, from other fields, and I'm going to try things. Players, I want you to try things and come up with your own way of doing things. And then this is another concept that we can try and help with. So if we think about the whole pathway that we talked about, you know, what we need to be aware of, that it's not going to be smooth from being a junior, a 6-year-old, right the way through to 20, 21. There's going to be all sorts of things there. And there are going to be challenges, there's going to be a lot of pitfalls. And as coaches and parents, we need to try and prepare and be aware that this is going to happen. We've also got early rises, you know, fantastically athletic, faster, stronger, more powerful, but there's going to be a downtime and they might crash. So how do we help? It can be useful, especially as a coach. We might manage that. As parents, we might manage that. Different age groups playing with different abilities. We might actually make things very difficult for certain players to give them a learning experience and make them, they can't always just run straight through people. So we might make it very, very difficult for them. And especially we can involve the players in the fact that this is a good thing. Not always being the best and it being difficult is a good thing for you, can actually empower them and make them realise that they're part of this learning journey. So that's crucial, isn't it? They are children, you know, they're playing, it's a love of the game, but there's going to be lots of difficulties that you as parents and coaches are going to manipulate for the good of them so they can become the best elite athlete that they can. Now, everything else we do, we prepare, don't we? So whether it's tactics, skills on the field, we prepare and we coach. Whether it's about nutrition, hydration, we prepare and we're very, very clear on what we need to do. And there's manuals and books and everything that we can do. So for developing the whole person, is there anything we can prepare? And if you look at these slides, Martindale's concept of this talent development environment is at a club, at an academy, with yourself, you can create the best possible environment to help the children develop into elite performers or be as good as they can be. They might never ever get to elite, but you can help them be as good as they possibly can be. And there's all sorts of things on there. Emphasize appropriate development, not early success. So it's not all about winning. Now, when I do these talks, a lot of people come up to me afterwards and say, I don't agree with you. It's not about winning, not about winning. It is about winning. And my answer always is, striving to win, wanting to win, being committed, trying to win is important. That's what we want the youngsters to do. But not at the expense of, if I don't win, I'm a failure. If I don't win, I'm going to give up. If I don't win, I'm upset and devastated. You want them to try and win, but you want them to have the mental capacity and the maturity to say, right, well, this is what I need to change so that next time I've got an even better chance of winning. This is how I'm going to train. This is how I'm going to prepare. As coaches, again, and for yourselves, there's a concept, Collins and Martindale, about nested theory and nested planning. So quite often we just think about a season, winning the trophy, winning this particular season. And all that this shows you is we can plan for what's happening now, but we need to be aware of what's going to happen in the next couple of years and what's going to happen over the next 10 years for that player, especially if they're in an academy, because you want them to be ready at 16, 17, 18. So what you do now, you might plan on a day-to-day, a session-to-session, but you need to put it in what's going to happen over this season, but what's going to happen in the longer term. And you can actually, we talk about periodization, but we can actually nest that plan into long-term development. So what can we do as parents? And what do we all try to do? Yeah, we try to grow their minds and their development, not just their bodies. You know, grow the good people. Physical literacy, lots of different movement, different activities, so they're not less likely to get injured. and they feel more confident about if a coach does ask them to do something else, they feel like they've got the balance, the coordination, the ability, the confidence to give it a go. Robust, independent decision makers, problem solvers. It doesn't matter, I'm going to try something different, I'm not afraid to fail. And down at the bottom, grow good rugby league people that love the game, that appreciate the community, that know that they are very, very lucky to play the game and be recognised, but they can see the big picture. And ideally, in my sport and when I coach, I try and keep that in my mind. And sometimes it's difficult, but that's what we have to try and do. If we do all that, a lot of people say, well, why doesn't it work all the time? You know, and the men's team that I coach, you know, after about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, they turned around and went, well, you tell us, you're the coach, you give us the answers, you tell us what to do. Whereas I'm trying to develop them into be independent decision makers. So why does it not always work? Well, 3 reasons in all the research that we've done. Lack of clarity, knowing who should do what does the coach do, what does the parent do, what does the club do, what does the family do, what does the individual take responsibility for, and how do you make that person or support that person take responsibility. Coherence, different messages. The PE teacher wants to win. So, we'll forget about, you know, you playing for your club, we need you. Winning, winning, winning. A club might get a different message. You might have grandparents that are giving them another message. You might have friends that are giving them a different message. So this coherence of message all the way through. And ultimately, it's always about communication, isn't it? We presume, oh, the coach might be doing that, and we think we know what the coach is, why the coach is doing it. The coach might think that they know why you're doing things or why the player's doing things. The poor player sometimes get caught in the middle and thinks, well, I think the coach wants me to do that, but I know my mum and dad want me to do that. And sometimes the communication just isn't there. So that's probably, you know, relevant as much now at this age as it is in elite pathways. So one of the things that I suggest, and again for when people watch this on the web, is there's a whole lot of activities and things that you can do if you want to try and break down some of these barriers. And my colleague Robin is going to talk to you a bit about his research, but also a number of activities you do. Everything's on the slides. You can do it. You could do it, you know, with even with the school and with all the players present, the coaches present, and all the parents present. But what's crucial is we all want the children to be as good as they can be. Down at the bottom, ZOUD. You might have heard it, you might not. Vygotsky's concept, zone of uncomfortable debate. It's not a shouting match at each other. You'll all have different opinions, but you all want the same thing for the young people. So you almost need to, you know, ministerial responsibility, right? We're going to go to this club, we're going to agree what we agree. We know that it's going to be heated. We know people have got very strong opinions. We're passionate about things, you know, but let's just throw everything on the table. Let's get it all out in the open, the communication, and then let's agree for our club, for our academy, for our school team, this is what we're going to do for the good of the children. And it is difficult because you've got egos, you've got experience, you've got power, you know, but if you can do that at your club, that will be amazing. So I guess this is where I'll hand over to Robin. I'll come back towards the end and just pull it all together. But if you don't mind just reading this screen, as it says about where you sit as parents, how involved you are, and what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Well, just to give you a brief background about myself, I'm currently studying in the same department as David, looking at the family involvement in talent development. And I was fortunate enough as a youngster to go through the talent pathway myself. So I have seen sort of firsthand the role that my parents play. And looking back on it retrospectively, I probably appreciate it far more now than I did back then when it was happening. So my research has been predominantly around parental involvement and where do they sit. In terms of tasks that you can do away from here, either back at your clubs or at home in your own households, is there's a worksheet we've produced where you can sort of self-categorise. It's from some theory around parental involvement, which I'll touch on, and it's basically an opportunity for you to sit down and go through a few checklists and see where you feel you might fit. There's a worksheet for yourself, there's a worksheet for the players, and there's a worksheet that can be sort of edited for the coaches. And you can sit down and see if you sort of marry up in terms of, do you feel that you perform one way, does your player, your son in this case, feel that it might be slightly different. Okay, so this research is around an area called POS. A lady called Celia Brackenridge has done a lot of research in this, in some other sports. Okay, she suggests that there is a parent's optimum zone, i.e. POS, okay, and it sits on a continuum from opposed all the way through to hyperactive. Okay, as you can see from the optimum zone in green, she suggests that reactive, active and proactive parenting is perceived to be the best place to sit. Okay, so at the farthest end we've got the no-go zone, the hyperactive parent. As coaches, players yourselves, as parents, I'm sure you've all come across this person before, this hyperactive parent who's on the sideline, who's really involved, who's getting in there, getting stuck in, shouting, cheering. Okay, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it might be towards officials. Okay, I'm sure we've all come across these sort of parent times before. At the far end we have the opposed and the inactive. Now these might be sort of parents that you may not have experienced before because you may never see them. They might be that parent that drops their son off at rugby training in the morning, picks them up after rugby training. It might even be that parent who asks someone else to give their son a lift to training, or even their son finds their own way to training. Okay, we've all might have experienced those, but they're far less noticeable in sort of elite sport. Okay, so for activities to do at home, you can go through these worksheets and you can self-categorise yourselves and see where you may fit. Now, in terms of phases, we all know there's lots of different phases in talent development and different phases in the season. Now, Brackenridge suggests there are these areas of parenting that you can sit within. These aren't solid, okay? It's a continuum. You can move from one to the other. So if you do fit outside of that optimum zone, there is a possibility of moving into it or out of it, okay? There is the opportunity as well that you may shift depending on the time of the season. You might be coming up to a large competition, sort of a major event. They may need that extra support in the off season. It might be an opportunity to let them sort of do their training, have a bit of downtime. So it's very flexible. You can move through the continuum as and when you might see fit. Okay, so task 2, for guys at home as well, sitting in your clubs, however you'd like to do it. We all want to create the best environment to support athlete development. Okay, and we often talk about this word support. But what does that word support mean? Okay, so everyone will have their own different definitions of it. Do they match up with the players, the coaches, the parents? So at home, you can do a sort of task around this, exploring these ideas. Okay, the red zone is ideas. Write down your ideas. Every individual can contribute. You can all place your opinions into that red box. Where it might become a little bit more tricky is as you move towards the centre in the middle. Can you as a group define support so that everybody agrees on one sort of fundamental definition? Can you then use that definition to help you as you progress? Okay, the third task, 10 things about you. Okay, 10 things I love about you, 10 things I hate about you. Now in separate parent, coach groups, player groups, or maybe even collectively, go through this game, play it, have a little bit of fun, okay? Write it down. What do you love about the coaches? What do you hate about the coaches? Coaches, what do you love about parents? What do you hate about parents? An opportunity to sort of investigate and explore the different perceptions from either angle so that we can try and get to those 3 C's, that coherence, that clarity, that communication. Okay, so some research on this has suggested there are some common issues that have come up as David has explored these in his own research. Okay, coaches not returning parents' calls, coaches not selecting a player, coaches not doing what they should be doing. Okay, these are all opinions of these are all parents' views. Okay, coaches not doing enough to help, and coaches not being there. Okay, so these are some common themes that have been turning up as players and parents have gone through this. Okay, equally important, vice versa, parents calling coaches and advising them how to coach their child. Parents calling to ask why their son, in this case, hasn't been selected. Parents calling external practitioners, strength and conditioning coaches, psychologists, nutritionists. What are they doing to help? What are you doing to help my son's development? And players looking over to parents for reactions after every run, pass, tackle. Okay, you probably remember the parents on the sideline that tell the player to move left, move right, go forward, make the tackle, okay, hit them hard, all those sorts of things that we're aware of. Okay, and finally, parents undermining coaches' input. Now, a colleague of ours did some research in tennis around this, and she asked the group of parents to come up with their list. She took that list of the parents' concerns over to the coaches and said, these are what the parents are worried about, these are what the parents are asking. The coaches took a look at it and said, no, they're not. They're not interested in that. They're not bothered about that. It's got nothing to do with them. That's not of concern to them. Okay? She stood there and went, but this is what the parents have said. Okay, and that example there really sort of demonstrates the idea of the need to sort of get those 3 C's into position. Okay, that clarity, that cohesion, allowing that communication so that as a group you can all aim to help that player's development as a triad. Okay, so some of the worst behaviours that you may see, living your dream through your child. We played well today. We're going to get that scholarship. Okay, having different goals from the player. It may be to get them to the highest level for external values, for maybe monetary values, contracts. As junior sport starts to become more professionalised, these are issues that do occur. Okay, treating the player differently after a good or poor performance. They come off the pitch after a great performance, your high fives, hugs, really happy, really upbeat. Okay, walking away with them. A poor performance, you're 10 metres ahead of them, storming to the car. They haven't got a clue what's going on. They're dragging all the kit with them. Okay, questioning and undermining the coach, and physical displays of displeasure. Anything from sort of shouting at them for making a wrong decision in the match, even bad body language. Okay, you could be stood there with your arms folded, bit of a pout on your face. The player looks over, what am I doing wrong? You could be happy, you could be enjoying the game, but is that what they're seeing? Is that what they're perceiving? Okay, so how does this make players feel? Okay, they might feel you don't trust them. They only love you. You only love them if they're winning. It's stressful and confusing having multiple coaches. My coaches are telling me one thing, maybe my parents are trying to coach me as well, players in the squad, okay, all that sort of stuff that goes against that cohesion. My squad are making fun of me. I wish my mum or dad would leave me alone a little. Okay, I have to perform, it needs to be perfect. And finally, I hope that's good enough. That expectation that they feel like they might be being judged. Okay, so some common issues, expectations, comparisons. Okay, you might be expecting them to do well, you might be comparing them to other players. They may have siblings at home that are playing the sport, are they being compared to them? Or even if they're not being compared to, they feel that they could be being compared to those. Okay, outcome judgments, motivation, whose goal is it anyway? Blurred lines, okay, is it a coaching parent, a parenting coach? Trying to distinguish between those 2 roles. So what can parents and coaches do in order to aid their players' development? Make sport fun, build motivation and self-esteem, the stuff David talked about growth mindsets, encouraging them to think further ahead in their development, to strive, to keep going, to encourage failure. Give that gift of failure. Challenge them to be better, challenge them to try harder, challenge them to work hard. Don't threaten them. Okay, stress the process, not the outcome, touching again on what David mentioned earlier, and give the player a perspective on life. Okay, so there is help out there. There's a very interesting video around Vision 54 that's available on YouTube if you click on the link and follow that. Can you develop a have you and a have I boundary? Okay, separate who your children are and what you do. Control your state, e.g. your body language. Okay, it can be easy just to fall into a slump. If it's cold, you're on the sideline, it's raining, you've got your hood up, you've got your coffee around your hands. Can you control that body language? Can you try and perceive that you're interested and you're excited for them? Okay, and feedback. Offer feedback for learning, self-confidence. Allow them the opportunity to feedback to you. So therefore, can we try and move from this supervisor role to a supportive role, a role of a consultant? Congratulate every player's progress. It may come at different stages of development. It may come at different rates. Can we congratulate them? Can we encourage them to continue? Model that appropriate behaviour. Encourage them to work hard. The analogy about the tackling and the fact that they must be working really hard. Okay, know your role and know what is suitable to discuss with the coach. Again, the 3 C's, marrying the sort of cohesion, the clarity, that communication can all help to develop the player. And be a good listener. You don't have to have the answers. We can't always have the answers, but if there's someone there just to listen and someone that they can talk to, that can always help. Okay, and the final task is the Mr. and Mrs. task. Something you can do at any time. You can do it in your clubs, you can do it at home. Okay, complete the questions and sort of try and see if you can predict what the opposite person would say. Okay, so what is my philosophy? What is the focus? what are the player's goals, how does the player like to learn, what is the coach working on with the player, and how will the player recognise success. Okay, so finally there's some common aims we all want to help the player. We all want to help them to be responsible for their own learning. Display self-discipline, commitment, resilience, seek that social support when necessary. Allow them to have that network available to them if and when they want it. Try not to necessarily force it upon them. Reflect and plan how they want to improve and remain motivated and focused on the long-term development, that rocky road. There's going to be the ups and downs all the way through. It's going to help their resilience. Okay, so more to do with the clarity, the 3 C's we've talked about, trying to marry those together, allowing that roles and goals, those opportunities for everyone to work together cohesively for that one outcome, for that player development. Potentially you could think of doing some job specifications. Okay, sit there and with your coaches, with your players, as parents, what is the job of a coach? Okay, what is the job of a rugby league parent? That will allow you to enhance performance and satisfaction. To get that technical challenge, get them to appreciate the technical challenge, give them some emotional support, challenge them emotionally, give them support by listening to them, and share that social reality. Touching on the Collins aspect that we talked about earlier, about the 5 rings, maybe something you can stick on your fridge at home, something you can talk about in off-season, maybe list some skills, some mental issues. Break it down and sort of separate them up into 5 different areas. Okay, and we have this plan and profile. What about looking at the movement, the technical, the tactical? Try and get that holistic, that whole package of that player's development, not just the movement skills and the technical and tactical. We're trying to balance it out so that they're socially happy in their environment and they can develop. That other versus the self, promoted goal setting. Moving from that idea of it was the coach's idea, it was probably them who was pushing me, telling me what to do, trying to work your way through to them setting their goals, discussing those goals with you and having those progress meetings. Okay, and the worst feeling in sport for young players, that player in the car on the way home. Things haven't gone well, they're sat there, they might not want to talk about it, they're upset, they're reliving the bad moments. But those best 6 words in sport, I love to watch you play. That's what they're there for. The speed bump analogy with the photo, children at play. At the end of the day, they're children at play, and you love to watch them play. You love to watch them develop.
So if I can just come on, just on that last one. So just wrapping it together before we hand over to Tony. Hopefully that analogy was a good about the iceberg. Top here, talent development for your youngsters. We see performance. And what we think about that is what we see on TV and the stars. They call it champion syndrome. We see what the champions do and we just want to try and copy and be them. But if you look underneath, we've got the technical and tactical, but we also have this movement, the mental and all the lifestyle stuff as well. You can break that down so it's clearer for the young people, for the players. What is there underneath that performance? There's the love of the game. You know, there's the concentration, the dedication, the hard work, the ability to learn, the growth mindset, the sophisticated epistemology, very strange word, the focus, dealing with pressure, being honest, you know, all these moral values as well. And finally, externally, how can that help, that tip of that iceberg? Yes, it's about quality practice and the access and the academies and the clubs and the coaches. It's about the stable environment, the confidence and the self-esteem. But look at that bottom right-hand corner, parental support. You know, you are crucial of developing them and getting them to the performance levels that they want to be. So thank you very much. Hopefully that just wraps it together, gives you some ideas. Please try the activities at home or with your club. I think especially developing that communication, you know, go into it openly, be willing to have conflict. You know, conflict is good if it's for the good of the children to help them develop. And now I'll hand over to Tony. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you very much. On behalf of the Rugby Football League, I'd like to thank Dr. Dave Gretich and Robin Taylor, who's working on his PhD at the moment, for the amount of work that they've put into our parents' workshops. It's very much part of our overall strategy. And when I conclude the event at the end, I want to just explain how important that parent role is to the organisation and particularly to the performance department. What I'm going to do now is, before I hand over to my colleague Paul Medley, I'm just going to explain to you the safeguarding structure that is in place within the Rugby Football League. Each club has a welfare officer whose role is to oversee the safeguarding mechanism within that club. But there are additional mechanisms that are there to support. There is a brand new system, which is an email system called parent.liaison@rfl.uk.com. If there's a concern or a question relating to anything to do with Young Persons Rugby League, you send that, you get an automated reply, and then that's forwarded to the relevant department at the Rugby Football League. You can do that anonymously as well. So if it was a concern that you wanted to report anonymously, you can do that. If it's a question about, is a professional club following the regulations that they need to, is a community club trying to recruit my players in an inappropriate way, all those things can be answered via that mechanism of parent.liaison@rfl.uk.com. Additionally, if you have concerns that are specifically related to safeguarding, our safeguarding manager is Colette Eden. That's her email. She will be able to advise you and your clubs on the safeguarding structures that need to be in place at the clubs and if there's any issues that arise around that. I'm now going to hand you on to my colleague Paul Medley. Paul's also National Player Development Manager, and he's going to explain to you about the new digital online handbook. Paul.
Thanks, Tony. My role as the National Player Development Manager is more on the performance side with scholarships and academies. One thing my 15 years previous to this was working in a club. You found a lot of parents were coming to meetings and were seeking information. There was nothing out there, and we really didn't, as a governing body, give that information out. So this is what we're trying to restart and invest into, is the parents' information. The handbook for us is key going forward. This will be a host of information where you'll be able to search information. So what we're looking for is a resource for you parents, so that you can seek the information. So if your child is 12, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16, 18, we're trying to give all the information that's relevant for your child at that age, so you can then seek what information you require, what the pathway is, which is for us is key. There's been lots of change in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's vital for us that we show how the game has changed. Kids think at scholarships it's all over. If they don't sign at 16, there's now multiple ways where kids can gravitate through to Super League and gravitate to championships. You know, recently you've seen Chris Hill progress and go all the way through in a different route. He didn't go through Super League, he found a different route to getting in there, so it is possible. And there's lots of colleges and universities now playing the game, so we're trying to encourage parents and children to look at different options that are available to them for Rugby League pathway. It's going to be giving the process of what the clubs go through, so each academy club gets accredited. Their academy is assessed and viewed. It's then given a score and a rating, and so that parents and children can look at what the club's doing, how it's delivering its programs, what's achieving, what's its program about, so you get more informed decisions. It will then allow parents to make the decisions of where their child's education wants to go. The clubs will be able to tell you what kind of offers that they've got with their educational packages. Now obviously most kids stay until 18. So it will give a real informative part, so you can seek out the information you require. It will give us a definite part where we can get the rules and regulations over to parents. A lot of parents obviously, you know, come along to these sort of forums and come along to kids and scholarships, and it might be the first time they've ever been involved with Rugby League because their son's a talented player, and suddenly they get thrust into this Rugby League environment that they might not have any association with. They may play completely different sports. So we need to give those information out to you. So the rules and regulations, time frames, dates, all those bits and pieces that you require will all be there to be searched. And basically it's going to be quite an open platform. It's going to be online, and basically you're going to be able to click on a page. So your child's 14, click on 14, you'll go to all the relevant information you need for that 14-year-old. So you can look at the options, what's available, what clubs have got available, what's available in your area, what's accessible, what rules and regulations apply to that child at that moment in time. So for us, it's a real key that we get that information out to the parents that can understand what their options are, what the information is, And also within that there'll be references where you can then seek further information. So there'll be all our email details, there'll be all the safeguarding details, there'll be all the bender pathway details, so that you can then reference further down the line if you want to seek further information. But it will be hopefully packed in, and it's going to be a live model, so hopefully, you know, with some feedback and things we get, we can change things as we go along and progress through there. It will not be going live probably till April. We've got the accreditations happening at the moment for the academies, so we didn't think it well prevalent to launch the handbook till we've actually got the accreditations for this year. So that's going to be going online, and hopefully April we'll get the launch through, and then we'll get it out there. So, you know, again, it's a resource information for you parents. I'll hand you back to Tony.
Just before I conclude, are there any questions? Is there any questions that you've got about the content that you've seen tonight, or about the online handbook and things like that? If you are watching online and you have questions, if you just use the hashtag RFL Parents via Twitter, or the Embed the Pathway Twitter handle, we'll get those questions and we'll be able to directly answer them, or we can direct message and give you an answer via email. I want to thank you for attending this evening, and for watching it if you're watching it online, because we are trying to create a culture change, and culture change does take not just 1 or 2 years, it can take up to a decade and more to change that culture. We all know that on a Sunday morning we experience environments that has some great behaviours, but there's also some difficult behaviours, and we need to challenge that collectively as a games community. We also need to inform parents and give parents the information that they need to fulfill their part of that critical triangle that I spoke about at the beginning. Let's remind ourselves that what we are trying to achieve is something that is led by the performance department. We want high quality performance from our coaches, from the head coach of England right the way down to the community coaches. And of course, as you'd expect, we want high quality performance from the young players who start playing our game right the way through to the England senior team. But to complete that critical triangle, we want to have world-class behaviour from parents. And that's a big challenge, because we're taking on a desire to change cultures that have built up over decades and thousands of people. But that starts with the people who are here, who were there at the workshop last week, who've watched it online, because all parents speak to other parents on Sunday mornings. When the players are getting changed at half-time, those conversations take place, and sharing that knowledge and building it is what changes a culture. The philosophy of the performance department is very much based on a philosophy that NASA used in the 1960s. And that was when JFK went to Cape Canaveral, was visiting the launch site, and walked past the janitor, and the janitor was cleaning the floor. And he said, "What is your role here?" And she turned to the president and she said, "I'm working to put a man on the moon." And that's very much the same philosophy. The philosophy is that the objective of the performance department is to put the World Cup in the hands of an English captain. To do that, though, it's going to require the effort, the drive, and the high performance work from every single person in our game. So the team that plays for England and the coach of England, of course we'd expect that need for high performance. But we need that high performance from our grassroots game, from every level in between, from our players, from the coaches, and world-class performance from the parents. So everybody has their part to play in us enabling ourselves to put that World Cup in the hands of the English captain. I'd like to thank you very much for your attendance. I'd like to thank you those who are watching at home on the internet. Remember that you can get your questions to us through the email mechanism or through RFL Parent on Twitter. There's a massive information, and that's fine. Go away, think about it, We'll be sharing the resource with everybody that's attended and with all clubs and all leagues and all of the England Player Development Partner Clubs. They're going to be running parents workshops as well, based on the content that you've seen tonight. So thank you very much and good night.